about
Good day. The president's answering questions with the British Prime Minister
India and Pakistan.
for the second time today. We'll listen in.
Congo was just done. Rwanda was just done. But you probably know, I won't go into it very much because I don't know the final numbers yet. I don't know. Numerous people were killed, and I was dealing with two countries that we get along with very well, very different countries from certain standpoints. They've been fighting for 500 years, intermittently, and we solved that war. You probably saw it just came out over the wire, so we solved it through trade. I said, I don't want to trade with anybody that's killing each other, so we just got that one solved. And I'm going to call the two prime ministers who I got along with very, very well and speak to them right after this meeting and congratulate them. But it was an honor to be involved, and that was going to be a very nasty war. Those wars have been very, very nasty. So we've done a lot of good work. We've had great support from the Prime Minister anytime we needed help, anytime we needed any form of support. You've been there. We appreciate it very much. And we're going to continue onward. We do have to take care of the humanitarian needs at what they used to call the Gaza Strip. You don't hear that line too much anymore. You don't hear the Gaza Strip. But it is the Gaza Strip, and it's amazing that it's not being handled a little bit differently. We're going to set up food centers, and we're going to do it in conjunction with some very good people, and we're going to supply funds. And we just took in trillions of dollars. We got a lot of money, and we're going to spend a little money on some food. And other nations are joining us. I know your nation's joining us, and we have all of the European nations joining us, and others also have called, and they want to be helpful. So we're going to set up food centers and where the people can walk in and no boundaries. We're not going to have fences, and they can't. They see the food from 30 you would say yards away, and they see the food. It's all there, but nobody's at it because they have fences set up that nobody can even get it. It's crazy what's going on over there. So we're going to work very closely together with your country, a great country. We also discussed inside that we are, there's a whole new thing happening with regard to energy from nuclear. Yeah. And the Prime Minister's looking at that very strongly, and I know you have Rolls-Royce nuclear plants. That sounds pretty good, right? I love that. What a great brand that is. But you're also doing the Rolls-Royce or the nuclear plants, the smaller plants. We're doing smaller and bigger, but the small is interesting. They do a small plant, very easy, very safe, and as they need more, they hook up another plant, and they have a series of plants instead of, doing the $20 billion plant. That gets tough for a lot of people to do. So we're just studying that. It sounds like you're very far progressed, but that's a great thing you're doing on nuclear. We opened up nuclear about 2 months ago, and it's now safe and very inexpensive.
No, we see civil nuclear as a big part of the future as we go to sustainable, independent energy. And I think that between the two of us, we can work very much more closely on this. And we've agreed that that's our ambition, that's our aspiration. And this is going to be a big part of the future when it comes to energy. And you can see in the last few years, energy has been weaponized. Prices have dictated both families and businesses across the United Kingdom, and therefore taking control of energy is a huge prize. So the more we can work together on this, the better. And small modular reactors are a very big part of the future here, and we've got great companies like Rolls-Royce involved in that. So I'm very much looking forward to working together with you, Mr. President.
We'll do that. We'll do that. We're going up to your oil capital in a little while. We're going up to Aberdeen. That's called the oil capital of Europe. And that's a great asset that you have up there someday. If they ever change their thinking on that, you have a great and valuable asset. There's a lot of valuable resources underground there. But that's a decision for you to make. But it's a very amazing place, and it is considered the oil capital of Europe. So it's another option that you have. So we are doing really well as a country, and I think that the Prime Minister has been so supportive of us, and so strong and so respected, and I respect him much more today than I did before because I just met his wife and family. He's got a perfect wife and family, and that's never easy to achieve, right? But
I take no credit for that.
But he's become a friend, and together we got a deal done that has not been able to be done. It was a deal that's very good for both parties.
A really good deal for both of our countries, and very, very well received here in the United Kingdom.
So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any questions?
Mr. President, on Gaza, earlier you said that you were going to change the deadline from 50 days.
Yeah.
What is your new deadline?
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today.
This is on Putin.
There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
Mr. President, you just talked about setting up food centres in conjunction with other organisations.
Right.
You're talking about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation or recognised aid agencies. How will this work?
Well, it's going to be working with the United States. We'll be helping with the food. You know, we have a lot of access to food. We got a lot of food ourselves, and we're going to bring it over there. We're also going to make sure that they don't have barriers stopping people. You know, you've seen the areas where they actually have food, and the people are screaming for the food, and they're 35, 40 yards away, and they won't let them because they have lines that are set up. And whether they're set up by Hamas or whoever, but they're very strict lines, so we have to get rid of those lines. But we're going to be getting some good, strong food. We can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved. We did some airlifts before, some airdrops, and the people are running for it. And the Prime Minister is going to help us. They're very effective with that. You've done that before, and for many, they've done that for 100 years very well. So it's not very hard to do, actually. Yes.
President, you say you love Scotland. You're the most Scottish president ever in the White House. Is there a better deal to be done for Scotland, for Scottish industry, in the deal that you've done with the Prime Minister? Whisky, for example.
Well, I have great love for Scotland. You know, my mother loved Scotland, and she loved the Queen. I don't know, I might hurt myself by saying that the monarchists are going to like it, some other people, but she loved the Queen. Whenever the Queen was on television, she wanted to watch. And she would come back religiously. She'd come back to Scotland once a year with my sister Marion, primarily, and sometimes my sister Elizabeth also. But they loved this part of the world. And, you know, we're talking about the Isle of Lewis. We're talking about serious Scotland. That's serious Scotland. There was no doubt about it. So, yeah, it gives me a feeling, you know, it's different. You go to another country, you have no relationship to it. You got to like maybe the head of the country or something. But it's different when your mother was born here, Stornoway, right in Stornoway, a beautiful little place.
Is there a better deal to be done for Scotland, for whisky, for example? Because of your love of Scotland, is there a better trade deal to be done for Scottish businesses like whisky?
Well, I assume when we do our trade deal overall, a lot of it comes to Scotland, I hope. Maybe all of it should go to Scotland.
It's a very good deal for the whole United Kingdom, and we've already achieved great things under the deal, and we'll achieve even more as we work together.
A lot of it is Scotland. I mean, I do know that, but I mean, we're dealing with the UK. But a lot of it comes to Scotland, and you know, I was very particular. This is a part of the world I want to see thrive. It's going to thrive.
Mr. President, back to Gaza. You talk about Hamas stealing food and stealing aid. What responsibility does Israel have for limiting aid to the region? And if I could ask a follow-up to the Prime Minister, what pressure can be put on Israel? Is that something that you and the United States would work on together?
Israel has a lot of responsibility. They're hampered by the fact that you still have 20 hostages or so. And the people of Israel are very concerned about the 20 hostages. It's very interesting. You could say they could be more concerned about retribution than the 20 hostages, but they really want the 20 hostages to survive and live to make it. You know, many of the hostages came to my office in the Oval Office, and I was amazed by, I would ask them the question, was there any sign of love? Was there any sign when you were a hostage and you have all of these people from Hamas around you, sometimes hundreds, sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but you're a hostage and you're being stored in a pipe. It's not even really, a cave, or it's a pipe, a little pipe. And some said they didn't think they were going to make it because they were losing air. There wasn't enough air, and they'd open up the pipe just in time, but they didn't do it on purpose. They just happened to open it. They got lucky. But I said, did they ever wink at you and say, like, don't worry, you're going to be okay? Did they ever give you some extra food, even if it was a piece of bread? Did they ever give you anything during that time? And some were there for 400 or 500 days now, right? It's a long time, a year and a half, more than that. And not one person said there was any love from anybody. In other words, you have hundreds of people, and you see it in the movies where somebody's a prisoner and somebody's helping. You even see it with Germany, where people would be let into a house and live in an attic in secret. You'd see signs of some. I said, did you see anything like, did they wink at you? Did they say, don't worry, you're going to be okay? I never received, I ask that question all the time. I've never received one answer that said, yeah, they really wanted to help. No, the hatred is just incredible.
It's certainly access to food issue. And what more can Israel do? And again, to go to the Congress as well.
Well, I think Israel can do a lot. I will say that Iran, I think, interjected themselves in this last negotiation. Can you imagine the beating they took? We wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. We'll have to do that. We will do that gladly, openly and gladly. They've been saying, Iran's been sending out bad signals, I'll tell you. For a country that just got wiped out, they've been sending very bad signals, very nasty signals. And they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that. They were talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about. They were interviewed on a recent show, and the foreign minister saying things that he shouldn't be talking about, shouldn't be saying. And I think they got involved in this negotiation, telling Hamas and giving Hamas signals and orders, and that's not good. That's not good.
I would say, look, we need to get the hostages out. They've been held for a very, very long time, and we must always start from there. But also recognise the situation on the ground in Gaza is absolutely intolerable, and I think that certainly speaking for the British public and myself, seeing those images of starving children in particular are revolting, and there's a sense of revulsion in the British public at what they're seeing, and they know, and we know, that humanitarian aid needs to get in at speed, at volume. Yes, some could be airdropped, and we're working with others, with the US, with Jordan, on that, but the trucks need to get in, because that's the only way you can get the volume in, and we do thank the President for the work he's done to try to get to a ceasefire, which we desperately need, but also to put aid in to the region. There needs to be much more of that. We need to galvanise other countries in support of getting that aid in. And yes, that does involve putting pressure on Israel, because it absolutely, this is a humanitarian catastrophe now. We also need to look beyond that situation to what then happens in the event of a ceasefire, which is desperately needed. And that's why I'm really pleased that we're having a discussion about what a peace plan would look like after that, the component parts of that. And we have to be really clear at this point that Hamas can play absolutely no part in any future governance in Palestine and and in Gaza. And it's really important that we're clear about what triggered this, who took the hostages, and calling out Hamas for what they are, which is a terrorist organisation. But I think today the focus has to be on getting that humanitarian aid in. At speed.
Will the UK avoid your pharmaceutical tariffs, and will it happen before August the 1st?
Well, we'll be announcing on pharmaceuticals sometime in the very near future. We have a very big plan on pharmaceuticals. We want to bring a lot of the pharmaceuticals back to America, where they should be. If you look at COVID, it sort of taught us a lesson. We were getting our pharmaceuticals from other countries. We almost didn't make any. We used to make them ourselves, and we're going to want to be making a lot of them ourselves, all of them in a sense. But you also have a good pharmaceutical business. We'll be dealing with you on pharmaceuticals also. And we certainly feel a lot better with your country working on pharmaceuticals for America than some of the other countries that were. With the relationship we have, you would not use that as a cudgel. You wouldn't be using it as a block. But we're going to be announcing sometime very soon, I think, pharmaceuticals are our whole thing. And the companies know. And drug prices are going to be coming down very substantially in the U.S., very, very substantially. And that'll happen very soon.
Mr. President,
No, go ahead. Hold it.
we can all sense your frustration with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Do you think he's been lying to you about his intentions in Ukraine?
Well, I don't want to use the word lying. All I know is we'd have a good talk. And it seemed on, let's say, 3 occasions, it seemed that we were going to have a ceasefire and maybe peace, and you divide it up and you do whatever you have to do, that obviously to get to the end. And all of a sudden, missiles are flying into Kiev and other places. And I say, what's that all about? I spoke to him 3-4 hours ago, and it looked like we were on our way. And then I'd say, forget it, and I'm not going to talk anymore. You know, this has happened on too many occasions, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Successful social media sites. There are new powers here to censor your site, states mandate.
To censor my site?
To censor your site.
You mean Truth? Truth Social?
I mean Truth. Is that?
Well, I don't think he's going to censor my site because I say only good things. Will you please uncensor my site?
Yeah, we're not censoring anyone. We've got some measures which are there to protect children, in particular from sites like suicide sites. We've had too many cases in the United Kingdom of young children taking their own lives, and when you look through their social media, they've been accessing sites which talk about suicide and encouraging, if you like, children down that road, and that is what we want to stop. It's nothing about censoring free speech. But this country is a proud free speech in this country has been for a very long time. We're very, very proud of it. We will protect it forever. But at the same time, I personally feel very strongly that we should protect our young teenagers, and that's what it usually is, from things like suicide sites. I don't see that as a free speech issue. I see that as a child protection issue.
We actually passed a bill in Congress, headed up by my wife, actually, which was to pull bad stuff out having to do with children, because it is a problem. But I cannot imagine him censoring Truth Social. That's more of a very political, and you know, it's been a very big success.
Not going to happen.
And I only say good things about him and his country, so they to me, you're making a mistake. I'm going to give my ambassador the job, make sure it's not censored. I had not heard that.
You're a big investor in this area, Mr. President.
Say it?
You're a big investor in this area.
To put it mildly. Like this ballroom that we built from scratch.
Do you worry, though, about the risk of increased taxes here? Will that stop you investing? And do you have a message last night on the soccer to the English Lionesses who won the European trophy?
So I think that I have a theory that low taxes bring growth. We just passed a big tax cut bill, the biggest bill in the history of our country, actually. And one big, beautiful bill. I used to call it the great one big, beautiful. We took the word great out. But it's actually called the one big, beautiful bill. It's essentially a very large tax cut bill for everybody. And our country's pretty soon, I think I can say it right now, our country has never done better. We had a country that was dead. It was dead 6 months ago, a year ago. Leaders from NATO, we had a very successful meeting at NATO. Your prime minister was there. It was an unbelievable love fest with all of those countries. And they agreed to go 5% and all the things. Very smart to do. But many of the leaders said, you know, essentially, they said, your country was dead 1 year ago. 1 year ago, we had a dead, and we did. We had a dead country. We had a president who didn't know where the hell he was. We had horrible, horrible people running our country. I think they were sick people, actually, sick. You talk about censorship. Those are big. That's all they did was censor, and they didn't know what to do. And they had high taxes. They wanted more tax, total censorship, transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, Everything bad they wanted, and they still do. That's what they still do. That's why they're down at 15% or something, I saw today, the lowest that the other part of the Democrats have ever been. But no, I find that when you lower taxes, you get growth. I will say this, and the Prime Minister hasn't been here very long, in all fairness. I think he'll be a tax cutter. But I find that as we cut taxes, we did more business. Yeah. You know, in my first tax bill, we cut taxes from 39% down to 22%. And we ended up at the end of the first year, when it was still a little raw, we ended up taking in much more revenue than we did at 39%. It was pretty amazing. And we're taking in a lot of revenue right now. And this was an additional tax cut. So I find, for whatever it's worth, tax cuts are very good.
On Russia, you moved up the deadline. It's now 10 or 12 days. Is the sanction the same, that you're going to slap a 100% tariff on anybody who does business with Russia?
So what I'm doing is we're going to do secondary sanctions, unless we make a deal. And we might make a deal. I don't know. You don't know. It's we've done so many peace deals. This is the one I started out with. And, you know, this is, I know President Putin called me. He wanted to know if I could help him with Iran. I said, no, I don't need your help with Iran. I need your help with Russia. And so that's the one deal that continues to linger. And, you know, we're losing 5,000. They're losing. I'm not losing. You're not losing. But 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian kids a week are dying. And that's not mentioning the people that are dying also in towns where, you know, he's lobbing missiles into certain towns like Kiev. And he's got to make a deal. It's too many people are dying. It's a really bloody war. And the 5 is now, they're really telling me that number is obsolete. It's like 7.
That's terrible.
So you have 7,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dying every single week for no reason whatsoever. So you would think, based on common sense, you would think he'd want to make a deal. We'll find out.
Publicly, have you had any other Ukrainian channels conversations with the Russians reiterating this?
In what?
Reiterating this new pressure and deadline.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a, yeah, I mean, well, you're the press. I'm reiterating it to you. Yeah, I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is. And look, the Russian economy, I don't want to do that to Russia. I love the Russian people. They're great people. I don't want to do that to Russia. But this thing, they're losing a lot of Russians. They've lost 1 million Russians. And that's the, you know, sons. That's the sons and daughters of Russian families. They leave the house, they go, bye mom, bye dad, and then they get blown away. And Ukrainian too. Look at Ukraine. It's a disaster what's happened there. But it continues to go on. As you know, we made a deal where the European Union is essentially involved, but it's NATO, and we're supplying weapons to NATO. NATO's now paying because the United States, because of Biden's in for $350 billion, the European nations are in for about $100 billion. Should be the opposite way, by the way, because we have a big ocean in between. Should be the opposite way. But I think that eventually something's going to happen. It should happen fast. So many people are dying. You know, when I settled out with Congo and Rwanda, they lost almost 8 million people. And it just made so much sense. And if I didn't get involved, they wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about settling it. It was just going on forever. And nobody could go into those territories because they'd get killed. They'd get killed. And now they have I hear it's a whole different ballgame. We settled it. This is one that should be settled. Russia, Ukraine. This is one that really should be settled.
Mr. President, Scotland's First Minister has today set out his plan for a second referendum on Scottish independence. Can I get your reaction to that as someone with deep ties to Scotland? Prime Minister, can I also get your thoughts on that? If the SNP do win a majority in next year's election, then they have the right to hold a referendum, you know?
Well, I don't want to get involved in your politics. We got enough politics of our own. I will say that I predicted what was going to happen the last time. You remember, I was opening the first course over at Aberdeen. And I was over here and at the same time, and they asked me that question. I made a prediction. It was the day before the vote. And I made it correct. I like to be correct, but I made a correct prediction. I don't know. I do say that when they made that deal, somebody said that it was, and I remember this very distinctly. I said, could they do this all the time? There was a little bit of a restriction, like 50 or 75 years before you could take another vote. Because, you know, a country can't go through that too much. I don't know the First Minister, but I've heard great things about him. I've spoken to him. I hear very good things about him, and I'm meeting him today. So maybe I'll have a better opinion then.
And let me answer that straightforwardly, because I believe in a stronger Scotland, in a better United Kingdom. And I think that at a time like this, when it's quite clear that there's uncertainty and volatility around the world, the strength of the United Kingdom together is very important for all four nations, very important for Scotland. And that should be our priority, that should be our focus, not on the politics, which feels like the politics of yesteryear now, at a time like this. And I think that you know,
that's a good answer.
The First Minister should probably focus more on his delivery in Scotland than on his constitutional issues, and we might have a better health service in Scotland. But at a time like this, I think the United Kingdom is always stronger as four nations. I think that's better for all four nations. I think that's how Scotland is stronger. Look at the deal that we've been able to do with the United States, a really important deal that we made just months ago. That is what the United Kingdom can do when we act as a powerful set of four nations together, and there are very many other examples.
Mr. President, you toured the Federal Reserve last week. And
I did.
Set to meet this week. Do you think your visit has inspired a potential rate cut, or how do you see things shaping out this week?
Well, it's interesting. I did tour it. I toured the building. And if you looked at this building, if you came here like 14, 15 years ago, we've had it a long time. It's been an honor to have Turnberry. But I was on much more opulent walls, ceilings, floors. We had to do this. And we did a very great job. I mean, you see how beautiful it is inside. Everything was saved. Everything was preserved. We had ceilings that were in bad shape. They were falling down. You know, it's very old. Wasn't properly maintained. Now it's brand new and beautiful. And we saved everything. If you really think here, you took a look and you were sort of commenting to coloring the. Now, this is a brand new building, but if you look outside, it's equally opulent and beautiful. And we didn't do that by spending, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in surrounding a railing underneath an area that you're painting. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Brand new, beautiful plywood, very expensive, wrapped around a figurine or a railing to preserve it. But you don't have to do that. You can just wrap a cloth, they call it a blanket, and you don't even have to do that if you're careful when you're doing the ceiling. But I don't know what they did. They'd take down a ceiling and put up a new ceiling, and the new ceiling had no opulence to it. Or they'd fix the ceiling. But I would say that all I need is a good plaster and a can of paint. And, you know, they spent $3.9 billion. And I spent a lot of money, too, but it's I'd say 3.8 billion less, you know, meaning I spent probably $100 million making this place incredible.
And you were saying a lot of that was local trades.
I used local
we
trades.
were looking at the windows, I think, in the next room.
I had local trades do a lot of this. We have the most opulent windows next door, and I had a choice. Do I take them out? And, you know, they've suffered through 125 years of storms. You have very big storms in this area. When you have a storm, you have a storm.
We do it properly.
And they made it, barely, but they were in bad shape. So I had some local people come up, and we looked at them. You have some great craftsmen here, I think is what you're getting at. And they said, sir, honestly, they've had it. We can copy it and do it much better. And they did. If you take a look at the windows in the various dining rooms, they're magnificent, and they're new, and they're much better looking than what was there. Same exact look, other than a much higher quality. And they're local people. I used a lot of your local people. You have really great local tradesmen here. Yes.
But do you foresee a rate cut this week? Do you expect
a rate cut, meaning a tax cut?
No. Do you expect the Fed to cut rates this week?
I think he has to.
By the way, that's important because the anticipation was September, not this Wednesday's meeting.
In other places, they had 10 or 11 cuts, and we had none. But I'm not going to say anything bad. You know,
right, Dan?
we're doing so well, even without the rate cut. With the rate cut, it would be better.
They still don't think they're going to cut them this week.
Look.
No, that's what I'm saying. The anticipation was that a cut would come in September, not now.
Each point is
and that's still the case this morning.
Right, but that's why if he starts setting up the new threshold is
is the
Wednesday.
equivalent of 300.
Well, he's been asking for it every quarter.
That's big stuff, you know. Those are big numbers.
Been
in
asking
the US.
since January 21st.
He should cut. A smart person would cut. You know, he leaves very soon, so it's like one of those things. But I'll miss him greatly. I'll miss him.
Can you tell us a little bit about Turnberry, if I may? Have you or will you enlist the Prime Minister in your effort to bring the open back to Turnberry? And Prime Minister, you described this beautiful course. Do you agree with the President that it's time to bring the open back to Turnberry?
Well, as you know, that's not a matter directly for me. That's for the sporting authorities. But look, I mean, it is the first time I've been here. It's absolutely magnificent, both inside and out, and looking at the courses itself and the building. It's incredible. But the decision on the Open is not a decision for me, as you'll understand. I should just pick up on the earlier question, because I, for one, will say congratulations to the Lionesses. Last night, our women's football team won the Euros, well, defended the Euros, I should say,
it's a big story.
which was a really big success, and the mental and physical resilience that they showed was quite incredible. So
it's a big deal.
There's a lot of bunting out today and tomorrow to celebrate them bringing that cup home.
Does you get the chance to do any planning for the upcoming state visit? And I mean, how is that going to work? Where would you stay? And anything about this?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's never been done before, twice. We had our original at Buckingham Palace, and now I guess we're going to Windsor.
Yeah.
And it's never been done, and I'm a big fan of King Charles. I've known him for quite a while. He's a great guy, a great person. He looks really well to me. He looks great. So we look forward to coming over. It's going to be... It was one of the most beautiful evenings I've ever seen. I hate to say it, but nobody does it like you people in terms of the pomp and ceremony.
True.
And I look forward to being here with the ambassador. Our ambassador is a very, very successful man who
let's
wanted to do
drop out of this.
And I said, how are you going to be able to?
We'll keep monitoring it. Made the choice to stay with it. You know, I used to, during the morning meetings at the network news divisions I used to attend, sometimes there'd be a presidential event like that during the meeting. And I always thought it was odd that we continued to talk about planning the day when the president was probably changing the day. So call it a quick audible here. I'll run quickly through the schedule. Sean and Dan will give their reactions to what we just heard from the president. We'll continue to monitor it. We'll get to as many topics quickly as we can because there's a lot of other stuff going on, and then your questions. So if you want to be in the conversation, please raise your hand. Vice President is in Ohio today in Canton talking about the reconciliation law. Scott Bessent's in Stockholm with other senior administration officials negotiating an extension with trade deal with the Chinese. The Senate is doing a few things. All right, Sean, House is out. Sean, what's your main takeaways from the president's ad hoc press conference there?
Yeah, let me just start on logistics because I want to echo what you said, Mark. Like I know I was watching the chat, whatever. Like, look, if your goal is to break down the day and what's happening, whatever. Too many times, I think Mark was exactly right. If you're not going to stop and pay attention to that, then what are you talking about? How can you plan the news if you're not going to talk about the guy who's creating the news? So I just for those people in the chat who want us to start early, I think Mark was exactly right. This is the goal, is to understand what's happening so that we can analyze it. And if you don't listen to the people who are making the news, it's pretty weak analysis. So I thank you all for sticking with us. Number one, I think the EU trade deal was huge. I made this comment on Friday, but I want to underscore it. This sets the predicate for everyone else. The the EU missed the boat on the 10% deal with the UK when he made the deal with Japan and Indonesia. The Philippines, they reset the threshold number at 15. They are very reliant now on the new revenue from this, but this was a big deal this weekend ahead of August 1st. I think you're going to see a handful of these new ones come in the letters. So huge deal for U.S. investment, for U.S. market access. I think even if you listen to the UK president talk about it, really important. The other thing is that I picked up and I commented, Dan and I were talking about this. Look, we talked a lot about what last week meant for the Fed. And I think there are two groups of people. The bigger group is saying, don't fire Jerome Powell, get him set up, try to push him maybe, bully him, if you will. But there is a Fed meeting this week, and most people never expected like a quarter basis point cut to come this week, but rather probably in September. If the president sets the expectation that there should be a cut in Wednesday, I hope he gets one. I hope we get one. I'm a supporter of that, but I don't know that we will. And then the question becomes, there's a big delta now, another 6 weeks or so between the next meeting. That puts Jerome Powell, I think, on thin ice. And I was hoping that we wouldn't set the predicate for a firing this week, but that may be possible when his comments there. So those are my takeaways.
Dan.
Yeah, I don't really think he made much news in that press conference, to be honest. I mean, I think he's in a good mood.
He did on Putin.
Well, yes, but we'll see, right? I mean, it's the umpteenth deadline-ish he sets that moves. So he's chatty. He's in a good mood. He clearly likes Scotland. It's historically important to his family. So, I think in that
it's a beautiful
regard,
golf course.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think on the EU, I'm laughing because by last night, the EU started to backpedal. They said nothing was agreed to in writing. It's non-binding. They started having different interpretations. And I know we were off air, but Friday night, the Japanese started saying, we didn't agree to half this stuff. So I hope the deal goes through. As Trump said, it would be great for America. But I mean, once again, I have no idea, and I'm not being snarky, what actually is going to happen.
There's a big difference between the tariff rate, which the EU president confirmed and agreed to, and some of these sectoral side agreements on autos and pharmaceuticals that I think are very important to our economy.
But Sean, well, nothing's agreed to till everything's agreed to. I mean, that's just the reality is everyone can move their tariff rates up and down. So anyway, on that front, I think we'll see. I will just say if the predicate is set that the Federal Reserve does not drop interest rates when the president demands it, and that if he or she doesn't do it, they're fired, that is not good for the long-term interests of the United States. Just not.
All right, let me just ask you about a few things on this and then a bunch of other topics to get to quickly, and then we'll take your questions in just a moment. So please raise your hand if you want to be on the conversation. I'm struck by the Trump-Starmer relationship. Seems closer than ever. Dan, what's the value of that to the president?
Well, it's a value because they're a big brand. Ever since they left the EU, England or the Great Britain, the United Kingdom, as they're calling themselves here, needs us. They want access to our markets. The UK economy has been struggling. So look, it's in their interest to have a special relationship. And I think for Trump, it allows him to say to Europe, the UK is with us. And by the way, their trade deal is still not set. No one's saying it at the press conference, but they're saying it off camera. So it's good for Trump to have him.
Sean, the president expressing a lot of confidence about the economy, maybe overstating the case, perhaps. Here's a headline 103A from the Financial Times about the state of the economy. We won't do B. How long can the U.S. economy defy expectations? The story makes clear it is defying expectations. Here's Bloomberg 109 pointing out this is a very important week for the world economy, with a lot of the Fed and some earnings reports, as well as all that's going on with trade. Scott Bessent, Sean, as you know, very bullish on what they're doing. Does this EU deal make it more likely that we hit the sweet spot and inflation stays low and growth continues to grow?
Yeah, I think it's positive momentum, and the market reacted very accordingly. You looked at futures and both how it opened, S&P record highs. I mean, look, here's what I think is important for people to understand about the articles that you showed. I've been going off on this for people who watch my show for probably a month now in earnest, but before that, this idea of whether it's budget projections, tariff projections in terms of what they'll do to the economy, overall economic implications of what Trump policies will do, have been wrong for 8 years. And these guys keep saying, I mean, if you go back to that first line, how long can they defy expectations? Conversely, how long can you guys be wrong who are so-called experts? I just find it amazing to me. It's like the weatherman getting up every day and saying it's going to rain today, and then it's sunny, and has the gall to come back the next day and just pretend that they didn't give a horrible forecast. These guys are wrong so many times in terms of what they believe will happen based on Trump policies, revenue-wise, deficit-wise, tax policy-wise, etc. And they're the same people who we continue to look at and say, gosh, you know, the experts say they're not experts. They're bad at what they do. And that
that's not
all
true.
right. All right. Gaza, again, Dan, just to take issue with your characterization, I thought he made news on Gaza, at least in terms of the tone. Both leaders suggesting that something has to be done. Netanyahu is once again finding himself on the wrong side of some international public opinion. Sean, what do you suspect will happen with Gaza now? Will there be any substantive change, or just more U.S. and international-led efforts to get additional aid in, but not necessarily in a systematic way?
You know what was interesting about Trump's description there? I know how he projects in terms of his public persona and everything. He really has a soft spot when it comes to children in particular getting, harmed or injured or whatever. When you do battle damage assessments, literally the first thing he asks for, how many, were there any children harmed? The imagery of children either malnourished, injured or whatever really affects him. And so it was interesting when you heard him talk about what's going on in Gaza, how the impact it was having there. And I think that moves him. That being said, I find this very fascinating, this sort of yin and yang. It's like, I got to get them food. I want to do this, but I want to give the Israelis enough runway to go finish the job. So I don't know. I think to me, this is going to be a really interesting balance between how much do you give Israel the long leash to go out and finish the job, but how much do you also try to ensure that there is humanitarian aid and food coming into Gaza?
Dan, Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Sean. Like, the yin and the yang of this is he's telling Israel to finish the job, and the Israelis are saying that a lot of these images of starving and malnourished children, some of whom are literally dying, is fake news, that it's not real. And so I am curious whether Trump, who does seem to be leaning on Netanyahu at times to knock it off, or like, WTF, what are you doing? Does he lean on Netanyahu that you cannot have children starving as a war tactic to squeeze off Hamas? And I get the food winds up with Hamas and there's all sorts of problems, but Sean, to your point, he's an image guy. That's a bad look when children are starving to death. I also want to just say about Wall Street, they're not always right, but they're not team red, they're not team blue. The only thing they care about is making money. That is the only thing they care about.
Trump and Starmer are still talking. They've covered a range of things, but I haven't seen any news. All right, let's see if we can cover 3 political topics in 2 minutes, and then we'll take your questions. And I'll just summarize here. Marco Rubio was on Lara Trump's program, and she asked him about whether he might run in 2028 for president, and he went directly to basically saying, J.D. Vance is awesome. I hope J.D. Vance runs. That was interesting. CNN has a story over the weekend about Kamala Harris and whether she'll run for Senate or president or something else. It appears she continues to not have made up her mind, not surprisingly. And it also says she's canceled her August vacation. I'm curious if you guys have gut about where she's going to end up. And then lastly, Roy Cooper officially got in this North Carolina Senate race today to run against the chairman of Mr. Whatley, the current chairman of the RNC. It appears that both men will clear the field effectively, and they'll both raise tens of millions of dollars in what will be, as North Carolina typically is, one of the most expensive races in the country. So, Dan, you want to comment on 1, 2, or 3 of those in short order, and then Sean, and then we'll go to questions.
Sure. Just quickly, I think Rubio didn't say no, but I just don't see him defeating Vance. But the question, I think, is, does the White House want a competition? So we'll just have to see. The second, I can't believe this, but somebody I know who knows Kamala Harris said she's thinking of running for president more, and I find that stunning. But everyone, if you want, go for it. And North Carolina, I just think that in Michigan, I think are really going to give us clues going into 2028, because in North Carolina, it's an open seat. Both parties have their candidates. Republican outside groups are already running digital ads against Roy Cooper. Yeah, you see, he announced officially today. I think there's going to be a ton of money spent. Democrats have got to find a way, when you think about after the next census, to put North Carolina legitimately in play. So I'll be really fascinated to watch it.
Sean.
Real quick, I think that the Rubio thing is fascinating because I do think that there's an aspect of which it actually contrasts with the Kamala stuff. It says to me that he gets what the future looks like. Maybe he's positioning himself for a VP role, or he sort of likes, he has a good relationship with JD and says, hey, maybe I can just stay on his side. I mean, there's a million things, but I think it's a big tell for him because there's a lot of people who thought that he might be the one of the other alternative candidates. On the Kamala thing, I got just on a pure, again, why this contrast, I could make a ton of jokes about how ridiculous this is, but I do think that her indecision, lack of planning, etc., just underscore how bad of a candidate she is. Like, if you wanted to do one or the other, you'd be setting up stuff, you'd be doing, I mean, like, this to me just underscores how bad she is. And so I really don't care what she runs for, but if I were a Democrat, she is to me so unformidable that's the bigger story, is that how pathetic it is after what she's done that no one cares. She has
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, this is when you would be sending signals, lining up a team, getting donors ready, getting people excited. I mean, to me, this just shows her indecision continues to shine through. This is why she will never be a good candidate and probably never win again. And again, if I were thinking about running for governor on the Dem side, I'd be like, great, bring it on. And then lastly, on North Carolina, look, I think this is the ultimate proxy fight. Roy Cooper, obviously very strong. This is important for Republicans because I think Tillis would have held the seat. I don't know that Cooper would have gotten in, but I think bottom line is this puts a seat in play and spends a lot of money that probably wasn't anticipated having been spent. Whatley has a lot of experience. He was the North Carolina GOP chairman, obviously huge access to donors now. But the bottom line is this is just a pure proxy fight. When a pollster asks a generic question, Republican or Democrat, nothing's going to come closer to just these two candidates. It'll be a voter reg and turnout operation.
Yep.
This to me is the new. You want to see everybody test everything, figure out what works, what doesn't. Every. North Carolina will be exponentially the most expensive race ever now.
And what D surrogates are welcome in Carolina? I'll be very curious to see who Cooper's willing to be.
This is literally like your proving ground right now. This is the spring training of.
The CNN story on Kamala Harris was pegged to some Democrats openly, some on background, worried that if she's the gubernatorial nominee, she could hurt the House races because she'll inspire Republican turnout. I will say at least one person has told her being governor of California is not a great job. And so you have lots of complications, raising money, other people in the race, etc. Some of her advisors think she cleared the field. Either way, there's going to be someone else on the ballot. And if she wins, she gets to go to Sacramento and fight with a really liberal legislature to try to deal with a lot of big problems. So that's looking to some of her people like a less attractive job. And then unless she wants to admit that she's done, she runs for president. So we'll see. All right. Your questions now. Again, we didn't get to everything we wanted to, but
what do you think she does, Mark?
Oh, I was afraid you'd ask me that. I think she doesn't run for governor. She runs, I think she might get in, but I don't think she'll stay in if she gets in. I don't think she'll end up being a governor, a candidate for governor of California. And I think she'll find it's so hard raising money to run for president that she's done with politics, would be my guess.
I think she wants to run for president. I can't believe it, but I think that's the hesitation. I think she doesn't want to give it up.
And she doesn't want to be governor of California. It's not a great job. It's not a great job for Brian. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Sean and Dan.
Hi guys. This is Brian. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. And I wanted to give my quick perspective and question from Mark from the point of view of a staunch independent. I voted for Ross Perot and I kind of never looked back. And I was thinking a lot about the conversations you were having last week. And it got me to thinking about the Kennedy assassination and Watergate. And I didn't live through them, but my sense is that there was universal sort of horror and outrage at those two things because they were bad for the country.
Aspect of it, but
Whereas
right
now,
it
when
would
Trump
be
gets,
inappropriate to
there's an
talk
attempted
about it,
assassination, or we have the Mueller investigation, half the country thinks
Wind
it was
is
a
a
setup.
disaster.
Hold on, hold on one second.
I know, it's a
Kill
shame.
the
It's not
audio
his
on this,
fault.
please. Kill the Trump audio.
I used to tell.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, whereas with the Trump assassination, half the country thinks it was a setup, or they wish the guy had better aim. And with the Mueller investigation, which I find order of magnitude worse than Watergate, anything in Watergate, half the country thinks it was not a big deal and just sort of about Russian interference.
Yeah.
Where I found it a really big deal.
Right. Brian, I'm interested in everything you said, but get to your question just because we're short of time.
My question for you, Mark, is, what I heard from you last week is that quote unquote Trump supporters are really frustrated by the Mueller investigation. And I just wanted to make a plea that folks like me were also extremely frustrated. I didn't vote for Trump any of the 3 times, but I want him to do well. So I just wanted that plea from the point of view of an independent. And then my question for you, Mark, was what crime did Nixon commit? Because you seem very focused with Tulsi, which I don't really care about, but on what crimes were committed during Mueller. And I really don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people in 1975 could tell you what crime Nixon committed.
Sure.
So,
I'll tell you the answer to that. The president was asked finally about the Epstein matter in this press conference, which is now coming up on 1 hour, and he swatted the question away, just so you know. Brian, one of the crimes the President Nixon committed, and again, he wasn't convicted, but the fact pattern suggests the crime was, well, again, he resigned before he would have been removed from office. I think history would record, but he asked the head of the CIA to interfere with an FBI investigation. That'd be a crime. And he also ordered the break.
Hold on, out of curiosity, just since we played the game the other day, what crime is that? Interfering with
active criminal investigation. I think that's a crime, and he did it as part of a conspiracy. So he committed a conspiracy to obstruct a federal investigation of a crime. So that'd be a crime. Brian, in terms of the Mueller, I agree with you. I shouldn't say that only Trump supporters are concerned with what happened. Other people are, and more people should be, because what happened, including, I think you come back to Senator Schiff. I mean, what they did was not something that should happen to anybody, whether you like Donald Trump or not. They engaged in a lot of falsehoods to try to create the illusion of something that the facts didn't bear out, as the Mueller investigation demonstrated. Brian, thank you. Grateful to you. All right, Sebastian, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Sean and Dan after you unmute.
Good morning, colleagues. Calling from Southern Nevada, the Las Vegas area. 2 quick ones. I'm looking at the AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act expiration, wondering, Sean, if you have any perspective on that and whether that might be a bigger part of trade discussions toward the end of the year, building on the success of the Rwandan and Congan minerals deals with the Trump administration. And then secondly, I don't know if either 3 of you are paying any attention to the Farm Bill. My assumption is, 1, because it's expired, it is a very large priority for House Republicans and Senate Republicans, and that it may provide some significant price relief for grocery shoppers and consumers. So AGOA and the Farm Bill, if there's any insight in light of trade and getting past the reconciliation bill from either of you, but particularly Sean on AGOA and on the Farm Bill, whichever of you is most interested in the food basket.
Fantastic question. I wish I had more for you on AGOA. I think this will be really interesting in light of 2 things. One, the bandwidth. The USTR has been overwhelmed trying to get these deals done. And AGOA was obviously set up kind of as you alluded to. I mean, the whole idea was to give access to the US markets very favorably to a lot of African countries to allow them to export goods, tariff-free, duty-free, take away a lot of non-tariff barriers and other entries so that they could, to help the country. So it's a very soft power type of deal. The growth of China in that area, and to your point about the minerals in particular, has really changed the game since AGOA was first passed. I'm sort of going to be intrigued to see how many people get it, right? I think you're clearly understand the importance of this. And in light of everything else, does that get to the top? Because I think strategically it's taken on a much more important role since China has really looked to Africa to take control of minerals and ports and all sorts of things. So I think it's a great question. I don't have a better answer for you than to say that it hasn't gotten the light of day yet, but there's an entire office at USTR that just deals with stuff like that. The question is, do they get enough people in Congress fired up? Does Ways and Means, that subcommittee on trade that has to do with, is there enough interest and bandwidth that gets going? So, I think that's going to be a fascinating thing. And then on the Farm Bill, you're absolutely right. But Farm Bill is never an easy. I mean,
I was about to say that. Yep.
This is never. It's a dogfight because you have a lot of disparate interests, and so I'll be interested. You're right. You got a lot of House members in particular. This is life to them. But I think when you look at like ethanol and stuff like that, that's. I mean, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of battle this breaks out going forward. And obviously the other issue is there's like tangential issues now. You got Brooke Rollins talking a lot about visa reform with respect to farm workers and ranchers and things like this. So this is one of those things that like suddenly can go from a non-issue to like a blow up thing pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in addition to the immigration issue, watch the RFK wing that doesn't want subsidies to the large cross-border, like large ag companies. Also, the ag bill has historically been tied to like food stamps and other things. This has always been, and it's not just a red-blue, it's an urban-rural kind of I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back type of thing that's been getting wobbly because the partisans in both camps don't want to keep tying things together. So keep an eye on that bill.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate both questions. All right. Again, sorry for those of you who didn't like the way we handled the show. The president's still talking. He said no one's asked him to pardon Maxwell, but he could. Talked about the Steele dossier. And again, he's still going. So we'll have more on that and everything else tonight at 6 o'clock on Two-Way Tonight. So please join us for that. And Sean's friend, Sean's friend Larry will be amongst our guests. Yes, sir.
I'm pleasantly surprised that considering that the Blanche meetings and sort of the proffer, et cetera, that like that's not been a bigger deal. Again, I'm pleasantly surprised. Don't get me wrong, but this is going to be interesting to see whether it dies out or if it gets legs.
Yeah, it's not going to die out.
All right. Yeah, we'll talk about this tonight. Larry O'Connor's on, and Michael LaRosa, former press secretary to Jill Biden. So join me at 6. Sean, what do you have tonight?
E.J. Antoni, he's the chief economist for the Heritage Foundation. So we're going to break down, obviously, the impact of these trade deals, the EU in particular, and then talk a little bit about tariff impacts overall and the big, beautiful bill, tax policy, et cetera. So should be fun.
Okay. A couple two-way programming notes besides, again, Two-Way Tonight at 6. Megan is on at 6, noon today, noon Eastern. Ethan Strauss, our two-way colleague, joins her, one of my favorite people on the planet, joining another of my favorite people on the planet. And then Vicky Ward, one of the journalists who's been longest time covering the Epstein story in an intense way. Longtime journalist and author Vicky joins Megan to talk Epstein at noon. A note on Cancer Decoded. It is on hiatus for the rest of the summer. Not a Stephen Colbert kind of hiatus, but more like a View kind of hiatus. Just for logistical scheduling purposes, we're taking a bit of a break. But Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong will be back after Labor Day with more episodes of Cancer Decoded. So thank you for your support for the program and your questions about why it wasn't on last week. We're just dealing with summer variables and no programs in August, but we'll be back in September.
By the way, I'll just say on that front, keep an eye on this week at the White House.
On which front?
Might a cabinet secretary be out?
No. I'm just on more on the health.
Health. All right. Health. Keep an eye on health. Dan, you got anything you want to share coming up?
No, I got nothing today.
All right. We had lots we were going to show you, including my well-crafted tribute to Tom Lehrer, one of the finest geniuses of the last 100 years. But maybe we'll show that on two-way tonight. Thank you for watching. Grateful to you all. And we'll see you in 23 hours right back here. And the president, yes, is still talking. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.